Get a trade. That way, you will never starve to death. Who here has heard some variation of that advice? There's nothing wrong with getting a trade. You can become a plumber and you can become very wealthy as a plumber. But listen to the second half of that sentence. Did she say, so that you can become all God intends you to be? Is it so that you can let your light shine, so that you can become wealthy, so that you can achieve goals? No, it's so that you never starve to death. The thinking comes from a place of desperation. And that's the thinking that's handed down generation to generation. And the weird part is, it's completely invisible to us. Take a look at the building you see behind me there. That is an Industrial Revolution era factory. It's about 100, maybe 120 years ago. What other building that we have today looks very similar to that factory? Schools, yeah? Schools, and here's an interesting one, are run according to the Industrial Revolution age of thinking. Picture this for a second. You drop your kids off at school, or you as a child are dropped off at school, and you line up in neat lines, and the foreman, I mean the teacher, blows the whistle or rings the bell, and in your neat lines you go to your workstation and you sit down. You sit down at your little workstation and you work for a number of hours, and then the foreman, I mean the teacher, blows the whistle, rings the bell, and you take out your little lunchbox and you can have some food. Then the whistle goes again, you go back into your workstation, you sit down. It is run according to an Industrial Revolution era factory. Why? Because we are training human beings to be cogs in a system, and we're still doing it. Okay? Now, I'm not picking on schools here. The point is not to say that schools are badly run. The point is just to say we have thinking that is invisible to us. We are trained to thought, and we are culturalized to act in certain ways that no longer make sense in the modern economy. The old world thinking says, become a cog in a system, fit in, don't make waves, and if you're a perfect cog, you'll get your little bit of money at the end of the day and you can go home. That thinking will keep you poor. I like to call that style of thinking the wheelbarrow way. It basically goes like this. It's like the parents get hold of their child, the young son, the young daughter, and they say, my son, my daughter, you are young and strong. You must go out into the world and earn coins. Here's how you do it. Pick up your wheelbarrow, load it full of bricks, and for every hour that you push your wheelbarrow, you will get 1 coin. If you want a second coin, you have to push your wheelbarrow for a second hour. Now we think like that. We go, the only way to earn coins is to work for a set number of hours, so let me go and get a job and be dependent on a boss. Now, you work your set number of hours every day, you push your wheelbarrow for your set number of hours, and a horrible thing starts to happen. You start to realize that you can't quite afford the car. You're not quite breaking even with the kids and their education and the debit orders and the bonds and so on. So what do? You go back to the thinking that was handed down to you, and you say, if I'm not getting enough coins, what do I have to do? I have to push a second wheelbarrow in the evenings to get more coins. That kind of thinking keeps families in generational cycles of poverty. If you take nothing else away from today, this is the one principle that is the most important. Do not tie your earning to the number of hours you work. So long as we think a number of hours equals a number of coins, we are in financial trouble. Because as a human being, you only have so many hours in the day. The wealthy person's epiphany, the way of breaking out of this idea is this. Dump the bricks in your wheelbarrow. Get rid of them. Load your wheelbarrow up with gold. In other words, for every hour that you push that wheelbarrow, you need to raise the value of your work. Earn more coins per hour, not work more hours in order to get more coins. Epiphany number 1. Resenting the wealthy says more about us than it does about the wealthy. Has your family ever used a phrase like, how the other half live, when they talk about rich people? Yeah. You know what it's like? It's like rich people are a different species. The way that I'd like you to look at the difference between where you are and wealth is I want you to look at it as a curve. Because if it is a curve, you can move along that curve. You can go from where you are now to your goals. But if you buy into that thinking that says rich people are just a different species, then instead of a curve, there's just a chasm. There's a hole. There is an absolute void between where you are and where you want to be. And if you don't believe that it's possible to move along that transition, you don't act in ways that start to move you there. The starting point in becoming a high net worth individual is the belief that it is possible. That a wealthy person is not a different species, they're just further along on a continuum. They have more education about what brings in money and how to achieve goals than what you currently have. And that's okay, because that represents hope. That means you can learn these things, you can do them. Resenting the wealthy says more about us than it does about the wealthy. We often think about wealthy people as, they're obviously evil, they're obviously corrupt. They obviously stepped on people's faces to get where they are now. Forbes magazine paints a different picture of that. They take the highest earning individuals on the planet and they look at how much they give. The stats bear out that wealthy people give more per capita than anyone else. We're not just talking about more money because they actually have more, we're talking about more per individual in percentage form. The idea that wealthy people are obviously stingy, obviously evil, is not borne out by statistics. Yeah, of course, there's obviously the odd jerk. You will meet the odd, horrible, rich person. They're out there, certainly, in their numbers. But by and large, it is not a valid rule. That's number one. There's a fantastic book. It's called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. He talks about the difference between people who fail and succeed in anything. And he talks about how in wealthy families, they teach their children something very different to what is taught in middle class and poorer families. And it's just how to interact with authority. The middle classes and poorer people are taught to fear authority. And it's industrial revolution thinking. You've got to fear the guy who runs the factory because he owns your life. Okay? And it goes like this. Let's take a practical example. They do this one in the book. He says, you're taking your child to the dentist. The middle class family will teach the child that the dentist is God. He has studied for 8 years and he knows everything there is to know. You as the child must shut up, sit down, keep quiet, and even if it hurts, don't cry. Just wait for it to be over. Do whatever he tells you to do. Now in wealthy families, they approach the exact same situation completely differently. Driving to the dentist's office, they tell the child, the dentist is your friend. He has studied for 8 years so that he can serve you properly. How's that? Okay? The dentist is a resource that you can use. If you have any questions about your mouth, about your teeth, about anything that you want to know there, you must ask the dentist because it's his job to help you. Now take that kind of thinking, that's a simple example, going to the dentist. Take that kind of thinking and amplify it over the next 20 years. Which of those two kids is going to do well in life? You've got one who's taught to fear authority, shut up, keep your voice down, don't make waves, and the other one who's taught the world is there for you to utilize. It's all resources, you can use it to your own ends. Imagine the difference that would make. Represent yourself. And we need to teach our children to represent themselves as well. We have been conned into an industrial revolution myth that says authority is in charge and knows best, you must shut up and do what you're told. You must be a cog in a system. And as long as you are doing your job perfectly and not making waves, you'll be fine. That thinking is 100 years outdated. We cannot teach it any longer. And I thought to myself, just a mental exercise. If I was stripped of all of the stuff that I use every day, the suit, the car, the equipment, the bits and pieces, the toys, if I was stripped of all of that and just left with my knowledge, my wits and my education and put into this scenario, living in abject poverty, could I get back out? Could I get back out and back to my own life? What do you think? And could you? Yeah? Okay? Most of the people around this room are kind of saying yes. Now that's an interesting thought. Let's take that thought one step further. If I had to take a high net worth individual, someone who does drive the Ferrari, the Lamborghini, someone with their own private helicopter, with their own business, whatever the case might be, and I transplanted them into your life, do you think they would be able to get back out? If we say yes to that, then what we're saying is the gap between where you are and where that person is up here. Isn't that a horrifying thought? But at the same time, it represents hope, because it means it can be done. It means that the thought is out there, the ideas are out there, the knowledge, the education is available. It can be done. We've been taught for generations that to play it safe, you get a job and don't make waves. I contend that that is the most dangerous thing that you can possibly do, because you are taking all of your eggs and putting them in one basket. You are taking your life, your future, your career, your spouse, your children, your medical aids, your debit orders, your entire life, putting them into one basket and handing them to a person whose first concern is not your welfare. That sounds pretty dangerous to me. Also, 60, 70 years ago, people did go and get a job and work for 40, 50 years and retire safely. Does that happen anymore? Heck no, it's just not the reality. Most companies these days, if you've got a job, you have 31 days of safety. That's it. Now, let's look at this differently. People say being an entrepreneur is risky, being your own boss is risky. Well, Forbes magazine says the only people who are wealthy are their own bosses. Okay? The next thing is, if you as an entrepreneur try 10 big, crazy, inspired ideas, and 8 of them fail, you got 2 of them working. Now you go out there and you try another 10 big, crazy, inspired ideas, and again, 8 of them fail. 2 of them work. Now you're up to 4 things that are bringing in income. You go out there, 10 big things, 8 fail, 2 more, you're up to 6 different things that are bringing in income. For myself as a speaker, I now have multiple income streams. I speak, I train, I sell books, I sell DVDs, I do media appearances, multiple streams of income, much, much safer. Risky is the new safe. Safe is the new risky. And the more we buy into the old Industrial Revolution era idea that having a boss take care of us is safe, the greater the danger we put our own lives in. Risky is the new safe. Safe is the new risky. I believe that risk aversion is one of the things that paralyzes most of the people in the middle class. Your average high net worth individual has been bankrupt 3 times. How scary is the idea of going bankrupt to you? Yeah? To them, it's a matter of course. They've tried big, crazy things. They've tried building up businesses and they've utterly, utterly failed. But to them, it's only part of the process. And they do something interesting, and I'd like to invite you to do this. They give themselves permission to fail. Folks, today, at this early stage in your career, make that commitment to yourself. Do yourself a favor. Give yourself permission to fail. It's okay. It's only a bit of embarrassment. It's only a bit of skin off the knees. It's only picking yourself up and trying again. Give yourself permission to fail. Here's a revolutionary thought. Give other people permission to laugh at you and mock you for trying. Let that be okay. Say, I know my family's not going to understand. I know my friends are going to laugh at me. They're going to tell me this is crazy, you should play it safe and get a job. Give them permission to think that way. Give them permission to laugh at you. Give yourself permission to try and fail. You need the space, you need the leeway. Be kind to yourself. My final parting thought for today is just this. You are not separated from your goals by a number of years. You are separated from your goals by a number of actions. And that's completely different. Years are an abstract concept. That's like saying 10, 20 years from now, I'll be wealthy. It's not up to years. It's up to you and your actions. That puts the ball back in your hand. That gives you control. That gives you the power. You are not separated from your goals by a number of years. You are separated from your goals by a number of actions. The word is, as a man thinks, so is he. So ladies and gentlemen, don't think poor.